There it is. He timed it right.
Counting to explode with the left. Oh, and that right, but Davis took off some of the steam of the punch, but still.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. As one fight week ends, another begins. And so we turn our attention to the Serrano versus Cruz undercard, where former IBF Bantamweight champion Ebanie Bridges will be making both her ring return and her MVP debut against journeywoman Alexis Mons.
She does.
Sporting a professional record of 9 wins with 2 losses and no draws, 4 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 11 professional bouts, it has been roughly 2 years since Ebanie Bridges' last fight, the loss to Miyo Yoshida, a short-notice opponent who was replacing Avril Mathy, who turned out to be more than Ebanie could deal with. Ebanie dropped the decision, and a lot of time has passed since then. A lot has happened. Ebanie's given birth to her first child, and now she's ready to return to the ring. Though at 39 years old, whatever she does now is make or break, since at that age, you don't have all the time in the world to recover, to go back to the drawing board. She has to win. It's a curious signing when MVP signed her, because I thought to myself, what are they building her up to do? Ebanie is still one of the more familiar faces in the sport of boxing, but at that age, what's the game plan? What is the end game? Maybe it's a fight with Shanika Johnson. This fight that Ebanie is about to have this weekend is billed for 8 rounds in the women's bantamweight division, where Shanika holds all the alphabet titles. The problem with that theory is that a lot of people want to get their hands on Shanika. Former champion Miyo Yoshida, who beat Ebanie, wants to get her hands on Shanika, as well as former champion Dina Thorslund. She wants to get her hands on Shanika. That if that's the plan for Ebanie, she better take a number, because there are a lot of girls on that line. Makes you so sure that's the plan for Ebanie? Well, that's the plan for Ebanie and every other girl at 118 by proxy. Shanika having all the belts means she's bottlenecking all of them to her. So anybody there, everybody, with any intention of fighting for an alphabet title and becoming a world champion must challenge Shanika Johnson to do it until further notice. So I can only assume that that's the plan for Ebanie. What might also be the plan for Puerto Rico's own Crystal Rosado, who is also boxing on that undercard on the bounce after her shock upset loss to Sherita Metcalf. Sporting a professional record of 7 wins with 1 loss and no draws, 2 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 8 professional bouts. I saw that fight, and Crystal should have won it. She should have got the decision on activity alone, landing punches and being busier than Sherita. But for whatever reason, Sherita got lucky again and got the decision. Now she's fighting Tania Walters in what is a bantamweight contest scheduled for 6 rounds. She also is fighting at 118. You will notice that MVP has a lot going on at that weight. They've got Shanika, they've got Sherita, they've got Crystal, they've got Ebanie, they've got Dina. They've got a lot going on in that particular weight class, a lot of bodies to where you can mix and match the names and get a good fight every single time. Now, young Crystal Rosado, who's only 23 years old, has a lot more time than, say, Ebanie Bridges and some of these other fighters. She's still very young. I imagine that not only does she want to fight for a belt in the not-so-distant future, but she might also want to avenge the loss to Sherita Metcalf. It's the plan for Sherita. Maybe a rematch with Crystal Rosado at some point next year, or maybe a fight with a former champion in Ebanie Bridges. They also have Shannon Courtenay, other former champion. I forgot about her. She made her MVP debut on the prelim card of Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. As stated, MVP has a lot going on at 118 pounds. Shannon just fought at 118. Crystal Rosado is about to this weekend, and given the number of bodies that they have there, current and former champions, it's conceivable that if Crystal is successful this weekend, they will step her up against one of them, either Ebanie or Shannon. Maybe a rematch with Sherita? They got enough going on at that weight that MVP is more than capable of putting Crystal in a fight with one of the somebodies. So I believe she's going to take care of business this weekend. She's likely going to win a points decision, get back in the winner's bracket, and get back in position for bigger and better things later on in the calendar year. She was quite busy this one, having boxed 3 times. Once in March, again in July, then again more recently in October. She's about to get busy again this weekend. I like Crystal Rosado to win on the undercard of Serrano versus Tellez. Over to what is fast becoming one of the more popular segments here on the channel, not the Ring IQ hate mail, but the Ring IQ mailbag. Friend of the channel, Anthony Ware, on the heels of Junto Nakatani's lackluster super bantamweight debut asks, does Bam Rodriguez now have a better chance against Nakatani given Junto's performance versus Sebastian Hernandez? A good question, and a sentiment I'm seeing often expressed on social media. People are beginning to doubt Big Junto. Whether or not he can beat Inui, whether or not he can beat Bam. I said it in my weekend recap video, and I'll say it here again. I would not use the Sebastian Hernandez fight as a parallel for an Inoue fight, or a Bam Rodriguez fight for that matter, because Sebastian fights nothing like those fighters. And those fighters fight nothing like him, and they're not built like him. Whatever it was that made Sebastian a tough ask for Junto Nakatani is not necessarily something that Inoue brings to the table, or Bam brings to the table. And what was it that Sebastian brought to the table? Size, durability, and a relentless pace. A frenetic pace. Pressure fighter. Where Naoya Inoue is not a pressure fighter, and more specific to this question, where Bam Rodriguez is not a pressure fighter. Even if he's very busy and around, he's not a pressure guy. Happening in the background of the Nakatani versus Inoue conversation has been the Nakatani versus Bam conversation. That's a fight that's been getting talked about more and more. I wouldn't go using Sebastian as a parallel for a Bam fight because Bam is noticeably smaller than Sebastian and Junto combined. Wouldn't go using Sebastian as a parallel for anything because the fight that Junto just had with him was at 122, where Bam still campaigns at 115. Where Junto Nakatani's power may not have carried from 118 up to 122, we don't know that Bam's power is going to carry up from 115 up to 118 and subsequently 122, to where if what you're thinking about is a Bam versus Nakatani fight, we don't know that Bam's power's gonna carry up there. It might not. He's not a big guy. We ain't seen Bam at Bantam yet, so I can't here and now make assertions about what he's gonna look like at Super Bantam. That maybe Sebastian was able to take Junto's power at Super Bantam, but we don't know that Bam can. There's been a sort of running gag that wherever Junto Nakatani is, that is where Bam Rodriguez isn't. When Junto moved up to Superfly, Bam moved down to Fly. Then when Junto moved up to Bantam, that's when Bam moved back up to Superfly. Now Junto moved up from Bantam up to Super Bantam, and Bam is trailing him. Now he might move up to Bantam. So even if this is a conversation among boxing fans, these two guys aren't exactly on a collision course. They're separated by weight. They always have been. Imagining this fight is difficult because Bam has very good footwork, arguably the best feet anywhere around 115 to 118, but Junto's got good footwork too, and he actually put that on display on Saturday. Shaking and baking and using the ring, pivoting, weaving under the sweeping hooks from Sebastian Hernandez to then pivot and get on the side of the guy, hit him with a punch or two as you turn him. Junto's issue on Saturday wasn't his footwork, wasn't his accuracy, it's that Sebastian was a durable guy. And I don't know that Bam will be that durable at 122, to where if Junto gets in with the same punches that he landed on Sebastian, if he lands on Bam, I don't know that Bam is going to be able to take those punches, irrespective of whether or not Junto's power carried to 122. It may not have to for Bam. Bam's not a 122-pounder. Up until this point, there's been a discrepancy in height between Junto and most every other fighter that he's fought. But this Sebastian Hernandez guy, he was more or less eye level to Junto. Yeah, he was, but Bam wouldn't be. Bam would be significantly smaller than Junto Nakatani. So the dichotomy is entirely different. The way I see it, because of the discrepancy in height, Bam is going to have to try to get mid-range to inside on Junto before he can do anything. He's the shorter guy with the shorter arms, so he has to get in close. And that could be difficult, because Junto has good feet too. He can be fleet of foot. He's not walking on quicksand. The answer to Nakatani versus Bam is not quite clear at this time, and even worse that we're not on the eve of that fight. I don't believe we're going to see Bam versus Junto next or after next. What happens next for Bam could be undisputed at 115 or his debut at 118.
What happens next for Junto?
Could be the Naoya Inoue showdown or another fight with another fighter at 122, but not Bam Rodriguez. So it's hard to count either fighter out. I can't tell you that Bam loses to Junto, because what if Junto starts losing at 122? Well, that would change everything, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if Junto starts losing, but what if Junto keeps winning? And what if Junto further acclimates to the super bantamweight division?
Well, that wouldn't be good for Bam.
Not with Junto having a head start to further acclimate to a heavier weight where Bam has never fought. I can't give you the answer here and now, because the answer's not quite clear. Do I think Bam Rodriguez has a better chance against Junto because of the Hernandez fight? No, not really, because Bam fights nothing like Sebastian Hernandez.
We don't know that Bam can take the kind of punishment, the kind of punches that Sebastian Hernandez took from Junto. One fight is not a parallel for the other, so I wouldn't look at the Hernandez fight to evaluate Bam's chances. I would have to look at how Bam looks at 118, and if and when the day comes, 122. That'll tell the story. But Junto struggling with Sebastian, that doesn't tell us anything about a Bam fight. Bam! Over to veteran boxing scribe Dan Rafael, who per his sources threw out a few names we can expect to see fighting under the Zuffa banner.
Some Zuffa boxing signees for its league that begins in January and will stream on Paramount Plus. Former WBA 140-pound champion Jose Rayo Valenzuela, former WBA regular welterweight champion Radzov Butaev, 130-pound Justin Valoria, 135-pound Erickson Garcia, who upset Taiga Imanaga on the Inui vs. Picasso undercard, middleweight Vito Milnicki, super middleweight Misael Rodriguez.
And this is exactly what I expected the Zuffa boxing stable of boxers to look like. I wouldn't be at all surprised to hear, in between now and then, that they also pick up guys like Suleiman Sissoko, or maybe Igas Kavaliauskas. The outliers, the fighters that are good fighters, capable fighters, but have no marquee value behind them, no big promotion, and thus no reason to go the conventional route. That, for those fighters, Zuffa boxing may present more stability than what they've been doing.
What they've been getting.
Which goes back to what I told you, there's been this big hullabaloo that Zuffa's infrastructure may be semblant of the UFC's infrastructure, where the brand deals and the endorsements go to the UFC brand and not the individual fighter. That may be the case at Zuffa.
And some people don't like that. Some people feel that additional arm of revenue ideally would go to the fighter, not realizing that most fighters don't have brand deals. Most boxers don't have big sponsors.
You start talking about big sponsors and big purses, you're really just talking about the top 2% of boxers that are making money, but what about the rest of them? The rest of them don't have big brand deals, big endorsements. So if what you're saying is don't go to Zuffa, because if you do, you won't be able to get any big brand deals. A lot of these boxers don't have big brand deals, and they're not about to get them.
For a lot of these boxers, Zuffa might provide the kind of stability they don't have in regular boxing, falling through the cracks and being forgotten about.
I'm telling you, people have been bellyaching about Zuffa's entry into the boxing space as if regular boxing serviced every regular boxer. It doesn't.
There's plenty of guys that fall through the cracks.
Even if there is a cap at Zuffa as to what a boxer can make per fight, a lot of boxers already don't make much, so that cap isn't as big a deal as it's being made out to be. Zuffa is not for the Devin Haney. It's not for the Shakur Stevenson or the Teofimo Lopez. It's not for Crawford. It's not for Canelo. It's not for that class of fighter.
It's for B and C tier fighters, and I don't say that as a knock on anybody, but any boxer that can draw anything worth a damn likely isn't gonna be boxing at Zuffa, so you don't need to worry about the pay scale.
It's all just virtue signaling and champagne activism. The people complaining about Zuffa, there's enough in regular boxing to complain about that you don't need to worry about Zuffa. And Zuffa, upon their entry into this space, might meet a need that regular boxing doesn't service, because regular boxing only seems to benefit the top tier guys, but all the guys in the middle and at the bottom,
they're fucked.
What I see most people reacting to is Rayo Valenzuela's migration from PBC over to Zuffa. He's still coming off that loss to Gary Antoine Russell in a fight that I think he never should have been in, because Gary was still coming off the loss to Alberto Puello at the time that Rayo was forced to give him a title shot.
What do you mean forced?
According to Rayo's new trainer and manager, Robert Garcia, the PBC told Rayo it's Gary Antoine Russell or nothing.
What?
We talked about that here on the channel following that loss for all of those Champagne activists who are so worried about nefarious business practices within Zuffa. What about the nefarious practices in regular boxing, like forcing Rayo to give Gary a title shot where Gary didn't earn one? Gary was not as mandatory, he was coming right off a loss, and the PBC told Rayo, you either fight this guy or you don't fight.
Where were the violins?
Where were the protesters? Where were the picket signs? Where's the concern for little old Rayo, who decided he's better off going to Zuffa than doing things the way he's been doing things?
Like I said, all these bleeding hearts are only doing that for show.
Rayo, who's already tried conventional methods, has decided that going to Zuffa might be better. That's in spite of what the bleeding hearts are saying, in spite of Dana White's reputation.
They're dragging his name in the mud.
Now tell me that Rayo, upon leaving the PBC and achieving free agency, couldn't have migrated over to Pro Box or over to Golden Boy Promotions.
That Radzov Butaev couldn't have done the exact same thing because he used to fight at PBC too.
Pro Box, Golden Boy Promotions are a popular destination for boxing castaways that are leaving one outfit for another after one or two losses. And these fighters decided that maybe going to Zuffa is a better idea than just doing more of the same.
To get the same.
More than one thing I've said in the past is accented by this story, that Zuffa really is for B and C tier fighters. They might be able to put on decent looking fights with decent looking names, but you're hardly going to take over the sport of boxing with Rayo Valenzuela and Radzov Butaev.
Oh, look out, it's Vito Milnicki.
Can still do fights, and those fights could be good fights on a budget, but you're not going to run everybody else out of boxing with a stable like this. A lot of what's been said in the media about Zuffa is deliberately exaggerated for shock value. Content creators looking for clicks, forecasting doom and gloom and a boxing apocalypse where that's not the case.
Reality is often more mundane.
I believe that Zuffa can be successful to a degree. They can put on good fights, entertaining ones, with some familiar faces, like Rayo.
Doesn't have to be as overblown as it's being made out to be. They don't need to run the other game in town, out of town, to be successful in their own right. Regular boxing's infrastructure and Zuffa's alternative can exist parallel to each other, but separately. There's enough room to do it. The boxers have a choice.
It's what I've long maintained. You can fight for Zuffa if you want to try that out, or you can keep doing things the way you've been doing things. It's not the end of the world.